investigators find anyone who would have wanted to harm her?
Marlene Warren was beloved by everybody. Everyone they spoke to all described her as the most loving, kind, generous, gentle human being. Marlene Warren was definitely shot, basically point blank. It sort of shook everybody's sense of being safe in your own home.
This killer was someone who was ruthless, who was a sociopath, who would do anything to steal the life of another person.
Where did investigators think those orange fibers came from?
They looked like they could have come from something like a clown wig.
Someone dressed as a clown had shot Marlene Warren. The randomness of this was shocking because Marlene Warren had no known enemies. Could this be just some serial killer on the loose?
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Wellington, Florida, an affluent and remote suburb about 25 minutes west of Palm Beach. It was the last place anyone would have expected a mother to be shot to death in her own home. But that's exactly what happened when 40-year-old Marlene Warren heard a knock on her front door. It was a quiet Saturday morning when 21-year-old Joe Warren called 911 and told the dispatcher his mother had just been shot.
The 911 caller called to report that someone dressed as a clown had shot Marlene Warren.
Paramedics quickly arrived and rushed into the Warrens' home.
Marlene Warren was laying in her open doorway on her back. It was quite apparent that she had suffered an egregious injury to her mouth, consistent with a gunshot. She was unresponsive. She was still alive, but she was unresponsive.
Marlene was immediately transported to the hospital, but she died shortly after arriving. Detectives asked Marlene's heartbroken son to tell them what he remembered.
Joe said that he and his friends were there on a lazy Saturday, and then a knock on the door occurred, and then his mother, Marlene, opened the door and was greeted by a person in a clown costume who held a balloon and handed Marlene flowers. Marlene then said, "How nice," and then the clown shot her in the head.
Detectives examined the clues left behind by the shooter.
There was a basket of flowers with 2 helium balloons. One said, "You're the greatest." And then the white basket of flowers was attached to those balloons. That remained in the doorway, and that was basically the only evidence at the scene.
Marlene's son provided as many details as he could.
Joe's reaction was shock and horror. Joe gave a description of the shooter as someone who had manly features, who was wearing a clown costume with white paint on the face, but was wearing combat boots instead of clown shoes. And the killer clown just walked casually to the car and then drove away.
Was Joe able to make out what type of car the shooter was driving?
The vehicle was a white Chrysler LeBaron. It's a convertible. It chased the car through the neighborhood, but could not catch it.
A be on the lookout was issued for the vehicle. Meanwhile, detectives were baffled by the killer's motive. The ruthless attack had unfolded in an almost idyllic community.
This was like so out of place. This neighborhood was a beautiful neighborhood of large, expensive homes. It was a secluded neighborhood.
This was a quiet neighborhood in a place that was hard to get to. You don't go to Wellington just by accident. You have to know where you're going. You have to be there intentionally.
Which led law enforcement to reach a chilling conclusion.
It definitely wasn't random. There was no evidence of a robbery, no evidence of a burglary or theft of any kind. So they basically knew from the very beginning that this was some kind of a targeted attack on Marlene Warren. But the question became who and why.
Detectives took a close look at Marlene's husband of 18 years, but Michael Warren had been miles away from their home.
Michael Warren had a full alibi. There was no way he could be the shooter because he was in a car with other individuals at the time of the shooting. He was driving down to the racetrack about an hour away. So he was not the killer.
Marlene's distraught husband told police that they had always been a team when it came to her work.
She would help her husband, Michael Warren, in his business. And his business was a used car business. She helped him in that business, but together they bought investment property. And in that investment property, in their marriage, she was largely responsible for the investment property. So she would collect the rents and keep up with the books on the rental properties that they owned.
It was Michael who gave police their first lead.
When investigators asked Michael who could have done something like this, Michael suggested it could have been an angry tenant.
As detectives fanned out to interview Marlene's tenants, troubling questions continued to swirl around her murder.
Investigators were wondering who would do this. Why would someone kill Marlene Warren?
Law enforcement remained stumped by the strange details of Marlene Warren's cold-blooded murder.
It was just a person dressed up as a clown who then shot her in the head and then casually walked away. So investigators are trying to put the pieces together.
When law enforcement officers are roundtabling, so to say, about where to go, where to look, one of the first things they do is, you start looking at multiple different things. Like you look to the significant people in a person's life, the spouse or the ex-spouse, etc. You also begin to look at, did this person have any known enemies, or did they have any people that were disgruntled with them?
Marlene's husband, Michael, told police he was concerned the shooter had been one of Marlene's tenants from the property she had managed.
She collected the rents on these rental properties that perhaps, one of the renters had gotten into a disagreement or were disgruntled with her about their rent collection. So they looked into that area.
Police quickly fanned out.
So the sheriff's department, the homicide teams work as a squad, and when a homicide happens, they work together, but they all have they spread out. Everybody's got their different duties. Detectives went to talk to renters and people that, did business dealings with Marlene through the rental properties.
Could investigators find anyone who would have wanted to harm her?
Investigators looked into it, and it didn't go anywhere. There were no real leads there. There was no evidence to buttress that idea that perhaps it was some angry tenant.
After numerous interviews, no possible suspects emerged.
It was universal, and the investigators quickly learned that Marlene Warren was beloved by everybody. Everyone they spoke to, everyone they interviewed, both close to her and not close to her, all described her as the most loving, kind, generous, gentle human being. No one had an ill word to speak about her, and that was quite telling that everyone spoke so highly of her.
The entire community was alarmed by the brazenness of the vicious attack.
It was so shocking that this woman could be minding her own business in her own home on a bright Saturday morning, and that something as benign as a clown would knock on the door and shoot her in the face. It sort of shook everybody's sense of being safe in your own home.
You had the entire community all very nervous that there is an evil clown on the loose who could do this again. The randomness of this was shocking because Marlene Warren had no known enemies. Could this be just some serial killer on the loose?
The lab analyzed all of the evidence left at the scene.
The basket of flowers and the balloons were thoroughly processed. They were processed for the presence of latent fingerprints, particularly on those Mylar balloons. The basket and the flowers obviously weren't conducive to fingerprints. Everything was examined very closely, and all the evidence was collected.
Police continued ramping up their efforts.
Investigators were hunting for clues, like who sold the bouquet of flowers to the killer clown? Who sold the balloons? Where was the white Chrysler Baron?
And the tips flooded in. So out of those tips, any promising leads come from the community?
This event that had happened was shocking for this area, and it was widely publicized, widely reported on. It was big time news, And in the next few days, a manager at a grocery store shopping center reported that there was a white Chrysler LeBaron that had been in the same parking spot for too long, overnight. And they were calling it in as it appeared to maybe perhaps be abandoned.
The car was sent to the lab for processing.
The first thing they discover is that the tag that's on the car doesn't match the car. So what they then did was looked at the VIN number of the car itself and discovered that white Chrysler LeBaron was a reported stolen.
The vehicle was mostly empty except one item.
Inside the car, they found a Publix plastic shopping bag, which its relevancy wasn't immediately apparent.
Forensic specialists conducted a meticulous examination of the vehicle.
But they did vacuum and process the car. They found some long brown hairs, and they found some orange fibers.
Where did investigators think those orange fibers came from?
They looked like they could have come from something like a clown wig. The investigators recognized these could be clown hairs. And then the long brown hairs would certainly be intriguing to see the source of who might have been inside that car at some given time.
Meanwhile, detectives spread out to find where the killer had bought the flower basket and balloons.
They went to many flower shops and florist stores, and ultimately they were able to locate a nearby Publix that in fact did sell not only an arrangement like that, but identical to it. So they interviewed the women in Publix that had volunteered that they had in fact sold such an arrangement on the morning of the shooting.
Then, as investigators continued questioning Marlene's loved ones, they learned what she had privately shared with those closest to her.
Marlene Warren believed that Michael Warren was not being faithful. She had spoken to family members about potential getting divorced.
They thought the woman in question was an employee from Michael's car dealership.
That person was Sheila Keene. Sheila Keene was doing repossession work for Michael Warren.
During questioning, Michael insisted it was all rumors and lies.
Michael Warren absolutely denied that he had been unfaithful to Marlene Warren. He, when asked about Sheila Keene, denied it, said absolutely not. They were nothing more than business associates. They had no relationship other than business, and absolutely denied that he'd been having an affair with her or anyone else.
Sheila Keene agreed to come to the station for questioning and provide a sample of her hair.
DNA was really in its infancy compared to what we have today. And at that time, hair wasn't largely examined for DNA.
With no evidence to connect anyone to the crime, detectives were forced to move on, and the investigation began to stall.
There was really a dead end. There were no real areas to look into about who would have done this to Marlene Warren.
In the years after Marlene Warren's murder, her husband Michael's business began having trouble with the law.
So Michael owned a car rental place called A Bargain Motors. It was a car rental place that lived on the edge, that rented to people who didn't have great credit, but also did things that got Michael Warren in trouble. Michael Warren was ultimately busted for rolling back odometers.
Michael served time in prison for his crimes, and when he was released, he decided to leave town and make a fresh start.
He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for the scheme to defraud with regard to rolling back those odometers. After he finished that sentence, I think he served about 6 years of it. He had moved to Virginia and was married.
Michael was married to a woman named Debbie Warren.
They had a restaurant called a Purple Cow, or the Purple Cow. It was like a burger place.
Law enforcement had always kept a watchful eye on the ever-changing advancements in technology, and when mitochondrial DNA analysis emerged, investigators re-examined the long brown hair found in the killer's getaway car. So what were the results of that analysis?
Sheila Keene was in fact the source of the DNA on the hair in that abandoned white Chrysler LeBaron.
What went through your mind when the hair left in that vehicle matched Sheila Keene's DNA?
Everybody was like, I knew it. I knew that we were right from the very beginning.
Detectives searched for Sheila Keene, and when they discovered where she lived, it was a bombshell.
They were quite surprised to find out that Debbie, that Michael Warren was married to, was actually Sheila Keene.
Sheila Keene was married to Michael Warren. What was your reaction?
Of course, it was intriguing, and just one more thing, that why is she calling herself by a different name, and she had changed the color of her hair.
The pieces of the puzzle had finally come together.
So now Sheila Keene Warren is tied to the white Chrysler LeBaron that was a getaway car in the murder of Marlene Warren. When you look at it, only Sheila Keene Warren had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill Marlene Warren. There was no doubt in our minds that Sheila Keene Warren was the killer.
It was a telling moment when Sheila was placed under arrest for the murder of Marlene Warren. When Sheila was taken into custody, what was her reaction?
She was very nonplussed, very cool, calm, and collected. And basically one of the first things she asked was, as opposed to why am I being arrested, one of the first things she asked was, are you going to arrest him too, referring to Michael Warren.
So when you heard Sheila ask that, what went through your mind?
If you ever doubted whether Michael Warren at least had some more information about this case, well, perhaps Sheila Keene Warren's statement means a lot.
They were determined to find justice for Marlene's loved ones. Faced with the evidence against her, Sheila Keene Warren agreed to take a deal. She pled guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Prosecutors remained suspicious that Marlene's husband was somehow involved in the homicide, but told us they do not have enough evidence to charge him. The case against Michael Warren continues to be an open investigation. And now, it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. While you can't predict when a crime will occur, there are safety precautions you can take, particularly if you're going through a contentious breakup or divorce. We all know to close, lock, and secure points of entry in our home, but it's also important to be cautious when anyone you don't know comes to your door, including delivery personnel. To minimize safety risks, avoid opening the door and instead speak through it or use an intercom or ask them to leave deliveries at the door. If they require a signature, request they leave a pickup slip to retrieve your package at the post office or at a delivery center. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.